Back on the SportsMax Zone, coming out of a weekend when the death toll for the COVID-19 pandemic surpassed the 1 million mark. President of the Jamaica Football Federation, Michael Ricketts, says the new season of the National Premier League, featuring 12 teams in Jamaica, is set to run from November 14 this year to the 30th of June in 2021. 14 teams are set to compete for honours in the 2021-22 season, with 16 penciled in for the 22-23 campaign. Joining us to discuss bringing revenue to the league is Chairman of the Commercialisation Committee, Donovan White. Donovan is also President of the Waterhouse Football Club and the Director of Tourism in Jamaica. Donovan, welcome to the SportsMax Zone. Great to have you on. I know most of our CARICOM neighbours aren't having football at the moment, even though there is football in Haiti, there is football in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Curacao as well. How anxious is the local fraternity to get football going in November?
Anxious is a word to use, I suppose. We are also working in tandem with a number of different agencies. A number of different folks have been at this for the last 5 months. As you may very well know, the JFF had appointed a joint select committee of both football interest and private sector interest to really have a look at the state of the professional game and to help the Federation point the direction for the future. And a number of recommendations have been made, obviously, and we have since then formed a new marketing company for the professional football in Jamaica, which is now the PFJL, which is Professional Football Jamaica Limited. And that company is made up of 12, a director from each of the 12 clubs. But what you probably don't know, as a new initiative to really open up the professional ranks of Jamaica to new ideas and a new direction, is that we've also agreed in our Articles of Incorporation to include 4 independent directors. So that's 4 directors who are not involved in football, and more than likely bring to the board a level of skill sets that may not exist or that can enhance the skill sets that exist. And of those 4 independent directors, one will become the chairperson of the PFJL. So we're moving in a new direction. And from that perspective, we are also meeting with a number of corporate entities locally, including the chief sponsors of the Premier League for the last 8 years, Red Stripe. We're having discussions on a number of issues. Key among them is the repositioning of this year's competition and going forward as a made-for-television product, where we're going to be playing, instead of 209 games or 3 rounds plus the playoffs, we'll be playing 143 games, which is 2 rounds plus the playoffs. And we are proposing that all the games will be produced for live television. And we are in discussions through assistance from CONCACAF and UEFA in terms of helping us to chart that way forward, in terms of guiding our steps as it relates to best practices. And so we are looking at engaging a partner that will help us to set up the distribution channel for our live games, both locally as well as internationally.
Yeah, Donovan, I hear the plan with this new marketing arm and so on, but talk to us about how tough this job is, because the issue of marketing and making the product more attractive, I'm pretty certain wasn't lost on previous committees who had that role. How confident are you that this new setup will bring the dividends and the sort of marketing upgrade that the sport needs?
The big thing, Lance, is that we've never truly explored the full commercialization of the property called the National Premier League. We have, and through no fault of anyone, I think the PLCA for years, of which I was a part, we did a fantastic job with what we had. What we have to do now is to go to a whole new level of productizing the rights that we have, packaging them properly, producing them, and then creating a product for television where there are more audiences and more opportunities for brands to align and to realize a return on investment. The biggest challenge we've had is that we have tried to play the Premier League in all 12 communities across Jamaica. And whilst that's great because it involves, the football involves our communities, and the football, it has a social as well as economic value to each of these communities. But the truth is, it affects our ability to really enhance the product, the delivery of the product, the environment to which the product is produced in, so that we have an end product that is really reflective of best practice across the world in terms of delivering television. So that's what we're after. And we believe, based on all the discussions we've had and the proposals we've put forward to a number of corporate entities, that they are finally beginning to see and feel what we are conceptualizing as a whole different dimension to the presentation of the National Premier League. And from that perspective, we are very confident that we are going to have not only the support of corporate Jamaica, but we're also going to have the support of, which we already have, the support of the JFF, financially, as well as from the perspective of, as the federation, backing the tournament and backing their role in the tournament as the governing body of football in the country. But more importantly, I think the opportunity that it will present to put our players on display, and to play at the best venues in the country, the best surfaces in the country, and the best environment for football in the country, I think also adds to the attraction that we hope to bring to the league, so that not only will it become more marketable, but it become more commercially viable for us as well as for our partners.
Donovan, 2 rounds versus 3, and of course making it more TV presentable and attractive sounds really good. But we can't ignore the fact that we are in the middle of a pandemic, and of course many other businesses have been hit with financial losses. So based on you reaching out to these sponsors, would you say, you know, the response that you've gotten has been mixed, and also your expenses would have increased because a lot of COVID-19 tests will have to be done on the players based on the press conference that was held, I think, last week? They were saying that, you know, the players are going to be tested, so that's an additional expense.
It's easy for us to sit in a bubble and say, well, it's a pandemic, it's COVID-19, and so let's not do anything. I'm of the view that we have a major responsibility to make this work, and that is to protect lives and livelihoods. We have over 600 employees who are employed to the 12 clubs across the league. Each clubs hire about 50 persons that are salaried. These persons haven't earned a salary since the mid-March when the game was stopped, and April when the league was called off. And so we have to, first realize that yes, we are in a pandemic, and yes, we are in discussions through the JFF with the Ministry of Health to find a pathway to make this work and to make it work in the best way possible. And that's why we say this season we will not have spectators at games. And it enhances the reason why we're doing it as a made-for-TV league. Now, having said what I have said, we in relation to protecting lives and livelihoods, these 600 persons not only depend on the salary that they earn from football, but their families depend on them to earn a salary. Their communities depend on them to earn a salary, so that there is a continuum as it relates to the social and economic value that football at this level provides in our country. And so from that perspective, we have a responsibility to find any way possible to bring the sport back, but more importantly, to bring jobs back. And that's our focus. So if we as I said before, the costs are going to be higher. The fact that we're going to have to do COVID-19 tests, those are discussions that we're having with the JFF, who is having those discussions with the Ministry of Health. We are in discussions with a grant agency overseas as it relates to identifying opportunities that may be able to provide us with some additional test kits that would be administered by the Ministry of Health. We're looking at a number of different angles to ensure that not only do we get to play football this year at this level, but we get to do it in a safe way, and we get to do it in an economically viable way, so that we can, again, as I say, and I will continue to repeat, save lives and protect livelihoods.
Donovan, in an ideal situation, how would persons who will watch the new season of the league do so? Will I be watching it on one station? Would I be restricted just to watching it on TV? What is the ideal scenario from the perspective of yourself and your stakeholders?
Ideally, George, we did an exhaustive RFP process on the production side to identify a host broadcaster, and we had some extremely exciting proposals, which we're about to make a selection imminently as to who the production arm will fall to. From that, as I said before, we are working very much in tandem with CONCACAF to provide us some guidance in relation to what's the best route to go for distribution. So we're going to do a second RFP now to identify broadcasters, both locally as well as overseas. We have had some strong indications from a number of entities from a television perspective. We have had interest from streaming companies, OTTs, who are looking to acquire the product, as well as betting companies who are also looking to acquire the product from an online streaming perspective. We obviously will want to ensure that we cover the local market with free-to-air and or cable or both. Our production arrangement will include the production of a standard definition feed as well as a highlight feed that we will create our own YouTube channel to distribute that as well, in addition to our social media handles. So we are looking at media from a very holistic standpoint in terms of driving the full distribution of the Premier League. That also gives us leverage with our commercial partners to be able to identify new areas where value can be created and where they can exact additional value for their investment. And that's one of the reasons, I said before, we are focused on ensuring that we capture the product of the league by way of production, so that we get the use of that content, not just for live TV, but also for delayed and repeat broadcast of the game on an ongoing basis in different channel distributions.
And with no shame whatsoever, Donovan, I'll ask you, you would agree that the expertise that you seek exists right here in this part of the world and has been demonstrated time after time?
Absolutely, George. You are correct, and I'm going to restrain myself from calling any names. But what we do know is that, like I said, what we've seen in terms of proposals have been extremely fantastic. It's been encouraging to see that level of expression of cooperation to work with us on a long-term basis, because we believe that's where the future of the game is. We see what has happened in Europe. Games are being played, yes, without fans. In Europe, fans mean so much more because they contribute, I think, somewhere in the order of somewhere between 50 and 60% of the gross revenue take of the league. In our part of the world, the fan base in terms of attendance to games and the cost for the turnstiles is much different. And so the majority of our earnings still will come from corporate sponsorship. And then we are trying to build the distribution, the television or media distribution rights channel to really enhance our revenue take. And we believe if we're able to do that and do it successfully, we'll be able to set ourselves up to really have a sustainable future going forward. And that's the ultimate.
Excellent. Donovan White, all the best to you and your team. A lot of work ahead of you, and we'll be in the slipstream. I'll say that.
You certainly will be.
Thank you. All right, commercialization, the chairman of the commercialization committee for the National Premier League. Our first major break is now.